Christian author Max Lucado wrote this about the crucifixion. He says, everyone struggled on Crucifixion Friday. The disciples struggled to keep faith. Pilate struggled to save face. Faithful women struggled to help Jesus, and Pharisees struggled to discredit Jesus. Soldiers struggled to hurt Jesus, but no one struggled more than Jesus. People called him a liar, beat him with sticks, and plastered him with spit. They yanked flesh from his back with hook-tipped whips. They crucified him naked in front of family and friends. When hung up to die, no one rescued him. How did Jesus endure such an ordeal? Nobody struggled more than Jesus. You know, every Good Friday, it's one of those holidays. It's hard to celebrate because we know the pain of the cross. We know the pain of the crucifixion. And the thought of the crucifixion, the thought of a man being nailed to wooden boards, and all that came before that as well, with the torture that preceded the cross, let alone the torture on the cross, every Good Friday, just thinking about the crucifixion makes me shudder. Just thinking about the pain that Jesus went through makes me shudder. But this Good Friday, I have a different question that I'm asking. As we've just went through the story of Mary, the mother of Jesus, one of the questions I've been thinking about through her story is this: which is more painful, to be hung on the cross or to watch your son be hung on the cross? I'm no mother, but I do have children. And I know the heart of a parent is to do whatever you can to remove any pain that your child is going through. How many of you parents have been in a situation where you've seen your child go through pain and you would have done anything to switch places with them, to switch it up and say, I'll take on your pain, I'll take on that hospital stay, I'll take on that treatment, I'll take on those tears and that blood so that you don't have to go through that. I think any parent would choose to do that. And I wonder if Mary at the foot of the cross, as she's watching her son be crucified, if there wasn't a part of her that would have preferred that it be her instead of him. Because that's where Mary was. She was at the cross, and she saw her son crucified. That's part of her story as well. For those of you who have been joining us throughout this entire teaching series on Mary that we've been doing this last month, you know that Mary's story is quite the story, and she's been on quite the journey up to this point. Her story started out as her being a young teenage girl, probably around the age of 13, and an angel appears to her and calls her blessed and honored and greatly favored. And Mary, we want you to carry the Son of God in your womb. And while that's quite the honor to be given, Mary also knew the pain that would come along with that. She knew the shame that would come along with her being pregnant when she's not married yet. Yet what did Mary say? She didn't say, hold on, I'll think about it, give me a few weeks. She said, may it be to me. And with those words, she accepted the role of carrying the Son of God in her womb and then raising the Son of God into adulthood. May it be to me. I'll take whatever comes my way. I'll carry that burden if it means I get to carry the Son of God. Throughout the rest of that Christmas message, angels appeared to her, relatives appeared to her, and everybody was giving her little bits and pieces of this puzzle of who Jesus would be. Some were saying that Jesus was going to be not just your son, Mary, but he's also going to be the Son of God. He's going to be the Son of the Most High. Others were telling her he's not just going to be the Son of God, but he's going to be the Messiah and the King that we've been praying for Israel for centuries now. Not just that, others were telling her that your son is worthy of worship. Your son, he's going to be this great high priest. Your son is going to be this great king, and his kingdom's going to live forever. And with each piece of the puzzle, Mary began to put that puzzle together and ponder and treasure who he would be. And she began to raise Jesus in light of those messages. And as she raised Jesus, she began to see things in Jesus that confused her. When Jesus was older and started his ministry, he was doing things that she didn't expect. He was offending religious leaders, and she didn't expect that. He was saying that he's not just the Son of God, but he is God in the flesh. She didn't expect that. And there was part of Mary where she was putting together the puzzle, but then having to take pieces off of the puzzle and then re-put them on. She was constructing a faith and then having to deconstruct it so that she can reconstruct it in light of who Jesus actually was. And that continued for a lot of the time where Mary was raising Jesus, to the point where Jesus, he's in his 30s now, and she's just really confused at the things he's doing, and she goes to rescue Jesus from himself. Jesus was getting a reputation, and she wanted to rescue him from that. And what we found out last week is that when she went to go rescue Jesus and take him home, Jesus left her outside, telling his disciples that you are my brothers and sisters. You are my mother. You are my brothers and sisters. You are my family. I'm not just starting a new kingdom. I'm starting a new family. Mary, she knew that Jesus was in her family, but she wasn't quite ready to step into his family yet. But what Jesus wanted to do was to be the center of a brand new family of God that wasn't based on genetics and flesh and blood, but a new family that was based on faith and obedience and people who were willing to do the will of God. And then Jesus, his teachings, got him into a bit of a situation that Mary feared would come. Rome got tired of hearing him. The Jewish leaders got tired of hearing him. And so they all conspired to capture him, to charge him with treason, to charge him with trying to be a king in King Caesar's kingdom. And so they nail him to a cross and put a sign over his head that says, King of the Jews. Basically saying, this is what happens to any of you who try to take over the throne of Caesar. And Jesus, as he's on that cross on that Friday, he's going through a lot of pain, but so are some of the people around him. Now, a lot of people have told you that when Jesus was crucified, like everybody fled, everybody ran away. That's not true. There were a few people who stayed at Jesus' foot the entire time, mostly women. All the men, they ran away. It was 3 women and then one guy, one disciple named John. That disciple, that apostle John, he wrote this part of the story in John chapter 19. And as he's writing this, what's happening in this moment, Jesus is hanging on the cross. He's being crucified. And there's 3 women who are gathered at the foot of the cross with John. And Jesus begins to have this conversation because one of those women is his mother, Jesus, who is no longer left outside, but now she's clinging to his feet at the foot of the cross. John chapter 19, starting with verse 25, it says this. Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. I think it's interesting that all 3 women had the name Mary. And when Jesus saw his mother and also the disciple whom he loved, who was the apostle John, when Jesus saw his mother and the apostle John, whom he loved, standing nearby, he said to his mother, this is Jesus speaking from the cross, and he uses these words from the cross to address his mom. He says, "Woman, behold your son." And he points to the apostle John. And then he says to his disciple John, "John, behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her to his own home. Do you see this image? Do you see this image of what's happening at the foot of the cross? Jesus, he's in this moment of pain, and there's these 3 women and there's one remaining of the 12 disciples who are left at his feet. They're clinging to his feet. They're there. They haven't run away. And it's a big deal that they haven't run away because you do not want to be associated with someone who's being hung for treason. You do not want to be associated with this guy because it's his message that's dangerous. And if you're staying at his feet, what essentially you're saying is not only do we care about him, but we also agree with his message, which is why you don't see Jesus' brothers there. Because while they care about Jesus, they don't agree with his message. Jesus had 4 brothers, and none of them believed in him. None of them thought he was the Messiah. But these 3 women, they did, and so did the Apostle John. And so they were willing to take whatever penalty came from staying at Jesus' feet. Now, when Jesus is on the cross, in these short few verses, he does something beautiful to capstone Mary's story for us. There's three things that I want to point out that he does in this passage. The very first thing that he does is this. Jesus saw Mary's pain. Jesus saw Mary's pain. In verse 26, it said, when Jesus saw his mother. When Jesus saw his mother. I find it interesting that in the moment of Jesus' greatest pain, he noticed the pain that other people were going through around the cross as well. And a very special person to him. He saw the pain of his mother. He looked and he saw her. And I wonder what was going through her mind at that time. I can't imagine what was going through her mind. But I wonder if maybe the words of Simon were going through her mind. You remember what Simon spoke to her when Mary was only 13 years old? Mary had gone to the temple to dedicate her baby Jesus. And Simon looked at Mary and said, you're blessed, this is the Son of God, but I need to tell you this. Your soul will be pierced with a sword because of your son. And I wonder if Jesus might have been looking at his mom in her pain in the moment that her soul had been pierced. I think it's important for us to know that Jesus, in the moment of his greatest pain, recognized the pain of others, because I know a lot of you have gone through a lot of pain this year. And a lot of you have experienced pain that nobody else can describe, nobody else can empathize with. And maybe some of you have even thought, Jesus, do you even see me? Do you even see the pain that I'm going through? Jesus saw his mother. And Jesus sees you as well. I know some of you look at Jesus and you're like, Jesus, I'm going through pain, but there's so many other people in this world that are experiencing harder things than I am. Surely you don't have time to see me and my pain. Or maybe some of you have thought, Jesus, you're too busy running the rest of this kingdom and the rest of this world. There are horrible things happening all over this world, and so you're probably too busy to notice my pain. I find it interesting that in the midst of him doing the thing that he came to do, there was a moment where he could still see his mother's pain. And I want you to know this too. Jesus sees you, and he sees your pain, and he takes note of it. In the middle of his greatest pain, Jesus saw Mary's pain as well. There's something else that he does here that I think is just beautiful. That Jesus didn't just see Mary's pain, but Jesus honored Mary as his mother. Jesus honored Mary as his mother. This was a struggle of Mary's for most of her life with Jesus. She had this expectation of Jesus that Jesus would honor her, and sometimes honor me above all things. Jesus, he goes to the temple as a 12-year-old, and he gets lost from his mother. Mary can't find him, and she's like, Jesus, you need to come home. How could you dishonor me? And Jesus says, my first priority is to honor my Father in heaven. But then what does Jesus do? It says that he submits to his mom and he goes home and he honors her. Jesus, as a grown man, he's in this house, he's teaching his disciples. Mary comes to that house and she says, Jesus, I need you to come home. But Jesus reminds her again, my first priority is to honor my Father, to put him above all things. Jesus, for all of his life, put the first commandment above the fifth commandment. For all of his life, he said, I will always honor God and put God first, but I will also honor you as well. But I will never honor you above God. I think it's interesting that in this moment, this is when Jesus is being fully submissive to God to the utmost point of even pain and death. This is why he came to the earth to die. And before this, he's praying to God. He's saying, God, if there's any way out of the cross, if there's any way to avoid the cross, let's do that instead. But the first commandment is of utmost priority for me. And so, God, I will put you first and honor you, even if it means going through death. And God told him that this cup would not be removed and the crucifixion would continue. And so in this moment where he's upholding the first commandment, he looks at his mom and he honors the fifth. Because it was in Jewish culture that whenever you are going to be dying or that your time with your parents is over, that you would care for them after your departure. Mary's husband, Joseph, had died years before, and she was resting on her oldest son, Jesus, to care for her and to take care of her. And in Jewish culture, you take care of your elderly parents. And in the moment of his submission to the first commandment, Jesus turns to his mother to honor the fifth commandment and says, "Mom, my beloved disciple and friend John, he's going to care for you from this point on. Mother, John is now your son. John, this is now your mother. Care for her." Now, one of the questions that pops up in this part of the story is, why wouldn't Jesus direct Mary to be cared for by his brothers? Jesus has 4 half-brothers. He's got a brother named James, a brother named Joseph, a brother named Simon, and a brother named Jude. Why wouldn't Jesus look to James and Jude and Joseph and Simon and say, "Hey, you guys, I know I'm the oldest, but I'm dying here, and so now it's your responsibility to take care of Mom"? I think the reason he looks to John is because of this fact, that Jesus isn't just starting a kingdom, Jesus is starting a new family as well. And what we learn in the book of John chapter 7 is that his brothers did not believe in him. His brothers remained outside, and they refused to follow him. His brothers were not part of his family yet. And so one of the interesting things that Jesus does here for Mary, and it's one of the beautiful things that he does, is he doesn't just see her pain, he doesn't just honor his mother, but he does this third thing. Jesus welcomes Mary into a new family. Jesus welcomes Mary into a new family. And this is the word's intent from the cross, I believe, that Jesus isn't just taking care of his mother physically, but he's also taking care of his mother spiritually as well. Because all the other disciples, barring John, they fled. But Mary, she remained at the foot of the cross. And so what Jesus is doing, he's looking at Mary and saying, "Mom, this is what I want of you. This is what I want of you. Not just to treat me like a son, but to treat me like your Lord." And so he looks at his mom and says, "Mom, welcome to my family. For 30-some years, I've sat at your dinner table. For 30-some years, I've been a part of your household, and I've been in your family. And now because you've put me first, you've sacrificed your safety, you've clung to my cross, now I can welcome you to my family." I think for Mary, the cross was the last piece of the puzzle, the last message that she needed to hear. And the cross became her invitation into the family of Jesus. Jesus says, "Mary, our family's bigger now. Let me introduce you to a son. John, my mom. She's part of our family. She's part of what we're going to be doing from here on out." And he welcomes his mom, not to his biological family, but now to the faith family. The cross and the resurrection was the last piece of the puzzle for Mary. And I believe it was a time where Mary had to one more time look to God and say, "May it be to me." She said, "May it be," at the very beginning when the angel appeared to her and said, "Mary, are you willing to carry my son? And all the pain that's going to come with it, are you willing to carry my son?" And she looked to God as a 13-year-old girl and said, "May it be to me." She wavered a little bit on that journey as Jesus grew up, but now Jesus is 33 years old. Mary is probably in her mid to late 40s at this time. And she looks at the cross one more time. She looks at the Roman soldiers gathered around, and she has to say one more time, "May it be to me. I'm not leaving this cross. I'm not leaving my son. I'm not leaving my Lord." And Jesus then welcomes her into the family. You want to know how to join the family of God? You want to know how to experience this new life and experience this relationship with Jesus in the way it was intended to be? You do that by clinging to the foot of the cross. holding on to Jesus in the confusion, holding on to Jesus in the doubt, holding on to Jesus in the construction and the deconstruction that happens, and never letting go of Jesus, and keeping your eyes focused on Jesus. And in the middle of it, you hear Jesus say, "Welcome to my family. Welcome, sons and daughters. Look around. This is your mother. This is your brother. This is your sister. Welcome to my family." Mary's story, it doesn't end at the cross. We don't hear a lot more about her story, but one of the things that we do know is that Mary was in the upper room after the resurrection. You know the story. Hopefully I'm not spoiling Sunday for you, but Jesus, he's put into a tomb and then he raises from the dead. You know that part of the story? It's a big part of what's coming up this weekend. And then a few weeks later, after Jesus, he's already ascended back into heaven, he tells all of his family, his brothers and sisters, his disciples, to stay in Jerusalem and just wait for a sign. And a whole host of them gather together in this upper room in Jerusalem. And it's not just the 11 remaining disciples, but it's the women disciples as well. It's the mother of Jesus who's in that upper room. It's Mary, the wife of Clopas. It's Mary Magdalene. She's there as well. And while they're in that upper room waiting, they don't know what they're waiting on, but all of a sudden they hear this loud noise, like this rushing wind come in, and then it says that the Holy Spirit from heaven descended down onto that room. And it came down in this metaphorical fire that just falls on them. And it says that this Holy Spirit, or the Spirit of Jesus himself, descends on that room and then goes deeper and goes into each of those disciples. And it was in that moment that Peter's life was changed, that John's life was changed. It was in that moment where they began to put all the pieces of the puzzle together, and they were able to understand everything that was happening. But it wasn't just the 11 men disciples, but it was also the women disciples as well, including Mary, the mother of Jesus. She was in that upper room when the Holy Spirit came down. And guess what she got to experience? She got to experience the indwelling of her son one more time. And then for the rest of her life. Mary, at 13 years old, got to carry Jesus in her womb for 9 months. And then Mary, in her 40s, and for the rest of her life, got to carry her son in her heart for the rest of her life. And it's all because she clung to the foot of the cross. Good Friday is a day that we remember that Jesus died on a cross. And it's a tragic day, it's a somber day, it's a painful memory, but it's a good day. It's a beautiful moment where Jesus looks at us and says, "I'm willing to give all for you, to adopt you as my sons and daughters, and then give you the opportunity, just like I gave Mary, to carry me inside of you." Good Friday is a good day. Not everybody gets to experience the goodness of Friday, but for those of you, those of us who have joined his family, Good Friday is so good.